You guys ready? Here we go. Alright. Firstly, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out tonight, because none of this would be possible without such an incredible community. For those of you who are new, and even those of you who've been here for a while, I've wanted to share a bit of Axo lore. So here's a little bit about who I am, where I came from, and what led me to streaming. In case you didn't know, my real name isn't actually Axo, or Axes. My real name is actually Matt, but honestly, I do prefer Axo because it's become a part of my identity. I was born and raised in Calgary, Alberta, and I've spent my entire life here. But it might not seem like it, but I'm actually a very introverted person. And growing up in school, I was considered like a weird kid. And that kind of word like stuck with me. I never really understood why, but it made me feel like an outcast at the time. I didn't have the same interests as other kids. I wasn't into sports or other typical activities. But during school, I did find a group of people, and we were all kind of outcasts in our own way. But we did have one thing in common, and that was gaming. And you know, gaming means everything to me. It felt like the one thing I was truly good at. One of my earliest gaming memories was the first time I beat my brother in a video game while holding the GameCube controller backwards, and somehow it worked. And I remember that feeling so clearly, that dopamine hit of winning, even though I was doing it completely wrong. That was probably my first taste of how much I really loved gaming. And every night after school, I'd hop on League of Legends, queue up, and grind. And you know, I do love League of Legends, even though, you know, it has its moments. And you know, there's very few games where you get to work as a team toward a common goal, where you actually have an impact. You can snowball that into a lead. And there was a champion in particular that I really enjoyed, and that was Draven. And he was very exceptional at getting those leads, you know. And you know, I quickly realized that I was really good at him. But it wasn't just that, you know. I kind of felt similar to Draven in some ways. You know, I looked up to him, not just as like a champion, but more like a persona. His confidence, or you could say cockiness. The massive damage numbers, the skill it took to master him, and how you could even come back from the worst kind of games with a single cash out. I felt a bit of duality with him. On one side, that confidence, that belief that no matter what, you could carry. And on the other side, there was me, the quieter, more introverted person who didn't always feel like that in real life. When I talked about becoming a streamer or a YouTuber when I was younger, people laughed. They told me it was unrealistic, that I could not do it. And it hurt because, you know, it was even like close friends, family, my parents, nobody really believed that I could make it happen. So I did what I thought was the right thing to do, and you know, after high school, I went to university for business, and very quickly realized that I didn't really care about that kind of stuff. But you know, I stayed anyways because that's what I thought I was supposed to do. So for like the next 3 or 4 years, in like my early 20s, I bounced between degrees, not knowing what I wanted. You know, I had interests like gaming, working out, and you know, maybe working out was more realistic, so I tried going into kinesiology for a while, but you know, I didn't really want to be like a physiotherapist or anything, and I dreaded the years of schooling. And you know, eventually I just ended up doing like a 1-year pharmacy program, and I got like a little bit of a certificate, but the job, it was ass. There was no passion, no drive, just going in collecting a minimum wage paycheck for something I went to school for. And honestly, I felt scammed. Like I'd wasted years of time and money pursuing things that I didn't really care for, but it's what other people wanted me to do. And you know, after working for a while, I finally invested in my hobby. I bought a really good computer, and you know, I showed pictures to my coworkers, and one of my coworkers said, "Hey Matt, have you ever thought about streaming? And I said, I did when I was younger, and I always wanted to. And then she said, well, Matt, do you even care about pharmacy? You clearly have an interest in video games, like why are you here? And my simple answer was because I thought it was the right thing to do. And for me, even though it was just like a small little conversation, it kind of changed everything. I researched streaming, and I finally on like March 16th of last year went live for the first time. I was nervous, I was excited, and I won't lie, it was miserable at first. Bots in chat, people trying to sell me AI art. I thought these were real people, but I learned quickly that I could just not go on this journey alone. I reached out to some of my Discord friends, people I used to stream League of Legends with, and some people showed up, but I noticed something, that they would say that they're there for me, but they would quickly disappear without a word. And I realized, unfortunately, they were not reliable, and that hurt, because I thought they were my friends. Some stuck around, but I learned something important, and that's, like, people come and go, and you can't force anyone to stay. So, I kept grinding anyway. I started posting my stream into League of Legends lobbies. People would join, and yeah, there's definitely a lot of flame, a lot of toxicity, not really good interactions, but at least people were there. And eventually, a few people did start sticking around, coming back the next day, even a week later, and that started meaning a lot to me. I started playing with friends on stream, but that also brought some negativity, complaining, blaming, and even saying toxic things on the live stream. I've heard some really crazy stuff, but I knew, like, if I wanted to keep doing this, I had to really kind of protect what I was building. So I made a choice, and that was to be positive. In one of the most toxic games out there, I chose to be an optimist. I didn't flame people, I tried to encourage them, even when they play badly, because at the end of the day, we're all human. And over time, that became my identity, the positive Draven main. The growth didn't come easy. It took almost 100 hours for me to first hit 50 followers, and at that time it felt like I had to beg people to follow. Some people supported me, some didn't. Some gave pity follows, but I just kept on going. And eventually, I did hit affiliates, because at that time it was, you need 50 followers to get there. And that's when things really started to change. And for the first time, I was making money doing this, And every subscription felt like a connection that I had earned. Like someone truly wanted to be there for me. And it wasn't much at first. Barely enough to get by, of course, but it did mean everything to me at that time. And then, things started growing really fast. We went from an average of 8 viewers in March of last year, to 29 in April, 54 in May, and that's when I realized people really cared. And people were genuinely interested in seeing me grow as a streamer. And within just a few months, we went from 50 followers all the way up to 1,000. And thanks to some incredibly generous and consistent supporters, there was a point where we had nearly triple the amount of subscriptions compared to followers. Like, it was literally 3,000 subscriptions for like 1,000 followers, and that was absolutely bonkers. And we started doing fun things like viewer game nights, which at first isn't something I really wanted to do, but now, I've really come to love it. Win or lose, good games, bad games, I just really enjoy being with you guys. In around July and August, we were averaging in the 50s still. And then in October and November, we did dip, and that's okay because, people come and go. Some people move on, some people get tired of the game, and that's just part of it. But then the new year came, and I announced my big partner push. I felt confident Some of you even inspired me to go for it. So in February, I started campaigning, and honestly, it was looking rough. People I thought who would support me ended up disappearing, and at times, it's almost felt like they're purposely avoiding me. And unfortunately, within the first month of going for the push, I got sick. I had to do some short and I would say disappointing streams, but even then, we didn't stop. We held strong, and the people who truly believed in me ended up showing up. So thank you. And to the raiders who consistently showed up, you gave me confidence when I needed it the most. And then finally, April 1st rolls around, and we got accepted into the partner program. And of course, April Fools of all days, people thought I was actually joking, but it was all really real. And as I grew as a streamer, some people changed around me too. Some streamers I connected with became jealous. There was tension, toxicity, people talking behind my back, and I had to make a choice. I had to cut them off. There were times where my numbers dropped, but I stood up for myself because I wasn't going to let anyone tell me what I can or can't do. And through all of that, some people stayed. Some of you here today have been here with me through everything. The highs, the lows, the fast streams, and the slow ones, and that means everything to me. Eventually, I was able to quit that pharmacy job, and that's because of you guys, so thank you so much for the support. My 25th birthday in particular was one of the most meaningful moments to me. The messages, the card, I didn't really feel like an outcast anymore. I felt like I belonged. This journey wasn't overnight. It was 2,700 total hours of streaming to get here, which is actually 112 days of real time. There were days I wanted to quit, but a lot of you guys didn't quit on me, so thank you. This badge isn't just my success, it's our success. And thinking back to that duality, that confident version I saw in Draven, and the quieter version of myself, somewhere along this journey, those two became one. Streaming didn't just give me a platform, it helped me become the person I always wanted to be. And if there's one thing I hope you can take away, is that you can follow your dreams no matter how unachievable they may seem. And I think you can see it right here, living proof. And even though there were times I was betrayed, I felt lonely, that didn't break me. They made me stronger, they made me wiser. So if you have something you're passionate about, go for it, start it now, take that risk. Because you never know where it might lead. And I'll always be here for you guys, just like you've been here for me. Much love from the once lonely Lotl, Axo.